Hello, my name is Danny Perales. I'm the production director at Shoreline Church, and this is our tech tour. All right, so this is front of house. Our console for front of house is the dLive system here. So we have a CDM64 as our mixer, and then our Surface is the C3500. And I really gotta say that Allen and Heath has been the best console I've been on for churches. I've worked on Yamahas, I've worked on Midas, I've worked on the M and the X32. I've worked on plenty of consoles, and this has probably been by far my favorite for church. It's got a lot of tools that you need to accomplish what you need to accomplish for church. So yeah, we're on that. And then over here, I'm running Waves. So we've got a Wave server down in a rack right here. And mainly what I'm using Waves for is Autotune live in the room. Not that we have bad singers, but when you're doing things, you just want to give that extra level of security to your singers. And so we run Autotune, which leads me to my Stream Deck here. On my Stream Deck, if you look here, I've got Waves Tune. That's the pitch correction I'm running. I can scroll between channels here, and then I have all the keys programmed on the Stream Deck, and then also to turn off Waves Tune in a panic. I try to avoid using as many Waves plugins as possible. I will use them, I'm not afraid to. I do use like a C4 or C6 on vocals and things like that. But for the most part, I actually try to avoid using Waves because when I went and got my dLive certification, the instructor in the class said that because dLive has that phase coherency thing going on, everything going out is going to be in phase. The only part they can't control is Waves and Dante. So that's where you are running the risk of introducing phase. So the least amount of processing you can do, the better. That's why I don't really do a whole ton of processing Waves, although I really love it. And I make sure I've got an SSL channel on each thing. So hopefully that helps with some of those phase issues. Over here, I'm running Smaart. So we run that for our levels, for SPL measurement, as well as running graphs and frequency spectrum analyzation in real time. And I've also used that to do some tuning of the room with some transform functions. And I will say not everybody needs to be using Smaart. You have to know how to use it. But one of my biggest things is we don't hear with our eyes. So I actually don't use this as much. I really focus on my SPL levels and just make sure that I'm living in what we agreed on and that I'm not just dousing everybody in audio. And then sometimes if I'm really having a struggle, I'll use the spectrum to analyze what I'm doing. But for the most part, I really try to trust my ear. And at the end of the day, if it sounds good. The other thing here at Audioland is a Squawk Box here. So the band, currently the drummer and the keyboardist have Talkback mics. I'm working on actually getting Talkback mics for more band members. And then we also have a Talkback system Backstage, so the band can talk to me when they're side stage. So I just keep that low during service, but they can get my attention. And then I've got my Talkback mic here, just go into their ears or everywhere else that they can hear me as well talking to them. So that's a big, crucial part of this, and letting them have that opportunity to communicate. As I mentioned before, communication is key, so we have other ways. The other thing here is that I have Intercom. We're running ClearCom for our wired party line. It's just simple, good old-fashioned party line. And then we have Hollyland Wireless. I'll give you guys the specs on that, but we have Hollyland Wireless, and that's been really good. Mainly our cameras, stage managers, and floaters, system techs that we have are going to be on wireless, but really that's what we have here at front of house. The other cool trick I have is a lot of times I'm calling service like a stage manager would from audio if I'm mixing. So I had our broadcast guy give me program out here so I can see what's going on with program as I call things out. I can see that the director's tracking. He doesn't have to talk to me to let me know, like, yeah, I did that. Like, I can see that it's there. I can see what's going on, and I can really help troubleshoot anything that might be happening. During worship, I have it on Smaart, and then I'll switch it back over to the program feed when we get to the sermon and other parts of the service that I need to check in on. Down here at our front of house rack, I've got a computer to control my Waves server. I've got my Waves server right here. Right here is a transmitter. So we offer Spanish translation. We're in an area that has a lot of Spanish-speaking folks. So we have a Spanish ministry, and we do in-person live translations. So we use radios. So this is my transmitter. So they hear the translator do that. We also have a separate Spanish broadcast feed. Here is my Smaart computer. So I've got a Black Lion audio interface, the Resolution 2-channel interface, and I take my mic and my board feed from in there, and then I've just got the computer for that. Got my APC, my battery backup there. It's a trip light, and if you guys aren't running battery backups, you really should be, because that is of the utmost importance on some crucial pieces like your control stuff. Right here is our Hollyland wireless system. We're using the SolidComm system, and so this is the transceiver. It has an antenna built in, but I chose to do bigger antennas. It gives me pretty good range. Interfaces with our 2-wire party line here, so that's how I'm getting wireless camera comms and everything that I need to have. And then they also are using these packs here, so they just come and grab their packs and grab their headsets. My staff knows to come grab their radios here as we get ready for our morning, and so to have really good communications and just have things in place that help you be accessible as well as a director, leader of any sort over a ministry. To have your volunteers and your people just being able to reach you is a huge thing. So that's why we have that, and have a little station set up for that too. And then the most important drawer here is the candy drawer, which is looking a little sad right now. So this is our lighting console. We're running Onyx, Obsidian Onyx on PC. I think it's been the best bang for your buck. Don't get me wrong, there's better systems out there, but I think Onyx is a really solid control system, and I've been really happy with it. For the amount of money you spend, or that you would spend on any of the big names, MA or Ion or any of those things, this does what I needed to do. We've been able to really accomplish some really great things. It's got all the functionality of that, and I really think it's been a great system for us. I've got a touch screen here, so I can go through all my presets without having to use the mouse. I've got a keyboard and mouse here if I need it, and then the control surface here, which is great for certain things. And for the most part, we just use the command section here and build our stuff, and then we have a few submasters and things built out. This is our graphics position. So first thing foremost, again, communication is important. So we have Intercom right here. The graphics position does fire off a lot of cues for us, and I'll get into that in just a second. So they need to be able to hear whoever's calling the service, calling all those cues out. They need to be able to hear them and communicate with the rest of the team, so they have comms here. We're running ProPresenter for our graphics software, so for all our content and slides, lyrics, things like that, we're running ProPresenter. Our Stream Deck here is using Companion to talk to both our broadcast switchers, so we have ability out here as we're programming and doing things to control that, but also it switches our main content projectors from ProPresenter's output to program output. So we do use iMag during service. So during worship we have iMag. It just gives it a dynamic, makes it feel like, you know, this is bigger than us just in this room right now. So Stream Deck, that's the main thing we're using that for during service. And then the other piece of software we use is Resolume, and that drives our center projection, which we'll get into in a minute. But we use Resolume to drive that. It does all our backgrounds, it does the scaling, it does all the effects that we want it to do. And so the centerpiece of everything here is ProPresenter. We use MIDI commands to talk to our lighting console and our Resolume machine in order to control those and have everything fire off at once. So we actually don't run an LD, we don't run a lighting op at all. It's all based off of ProPresenter, and we time it out with different things. And so that's why it's crucial that our graphics op is hearing what's going on with service, and that we can make sure that they are nailing their cues and have their back on that. The other thing to note is that this computer out front of house is actually just a screen shared. My ProPresenter computer is upstairs in a rack. Our graphics ops like to be here, sit down here, instead of trying to reroute all our infrastructure down here, which would have been quite a nightmare. We did leave it up there and then just screen shared here. Same with our Resolume computer, which is actually Backstage driving those projectors. That's Backstage, and we screen share here. So this is really just a control thing, and at the end of the day, you really don't notice the difference for the most part. So this is our broadcast audio room. So we actually split off, through Dante, split off audio up here, and then they get to mix down our broadcast audio up here separately. So that's, I think, a very crucial key piece to having great audio for your broadcast, is actually having a separate broadcast mixer, not just an aux feed off of your console. Even if someone's managing that, like, to actually have a separate system that works well is going to be crucial to having a great online sound. So here we're using Pro Tools. Pro Tools is my main thing. that we have for mixing this. Now we do multi-track every service as well. We do go back and mix down some things or edit some things and use it for releasing on Spotify, YouTube, whatever we may do. We just want to record everything and make sure we have all of that stuff ready to go. So we have that, and that's why we use Pro Tools to mix. My goal would be to actually switch to a console sometime in the future. Running our audio off of a computer has proven to be unstable at times. Actually, originally we were on Logic, but we switched to Pro Tools because Pro Tools has been more stable, but even then, sometimes the computer can get a little finicky. So I'd rather have a console. They just seem more solid to me, but we would still run Pro Tools for recording and multi-track everything. We have the SSL. They are just our mouse, basically. They control Pro Tools, but it's like having a mixer in front of you. So Angel, our broadcast guy, really likes having those faders. He's really good at nailing those cues. Having that physical surface is actually going to help you nail a lot of cues. Because during rehearsal, that's when you're dialing in all your plugins. We use a lot of plugins and stuff here. So that's when you're dialing in your sound. And then once you get to service, you really should just be trying to hit cues. Same at front of house, just nail your cues. And the way we really achieve that is with the physical faders and having them in front of us. We've got the Audient Nero for just monitoring. And that goes downstairs and comes back to us through Dante. And then we listen to that here. We have Atom F5s for our monitors. Those have proven to be really well. And we've got a Yamaha sub down here. We're running a Mac Studio for our computer, and then we run external storage off of SATA drives. And then we have these different monitors, choices backs here. They're mono, but they actually sound like a really bad TV. So we listen to those because we try to listen on multiple things that are going to give us the representation of what people are listening on, whether it's their laptop, their TV, whatever. So we try to listen to multiple things, not just the great sounding atoms. Up here we have multi-view. We do want to make sure that things look like they match what you're seeing, not just checking sync, but also, that reverb sounds like it belongs in that room or different things. So that's what we're using here and how we achieve our broadcast mix. And the most important thing in this room, and if you take nothing else away from this, is this. It's the most important thing in this room. Go see chickens. Me and one of our old broadcast guys are both Seahawks fans, so that lives in here, and for good reason. So I'm going to introduce you to a friend here. This is Drew. It's a dummy head we have on a mic stand. We have a lot of fun around here, but actually he does serve a real purpose, which is when we need to focus lights or check cameras or different things, we'll throw him out on the stage, and he gives us somewhat of an accurate thing if you don't have another person to go stand on the stage for you. Works out really well for us. So we use our old pal Drew here to achieve that a lot. All right, so now we're to the part where it's really crucial to be collaborative with your worship team, and that is in-ear monitors. I have our worship pastor here, Aaron. He's just going to answer a few questions on how we got to where we are with our in-ears right now, because I think that was a crucial piece. So first off, what was your experience when we first got here? Because that was a big thing.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So I don't know if I can name maybe I don't name the actual product. So that I don't put anybody...
It might make them better.
Yeah. So it was Kling, right? That's what it was, Kling. That's what it was called. And for us, for my experience, it was really hard to hear things with clarity and have some control over that. So thank you to Danny. And one thing I'll say too is it's the relationship of worship pastor, production director is so crucial. Those of you that maybe it's difficult, I've been there too. I feel for you, and also know that keep going after a good relationship, a healthy relationship, a unified relationship, because it goes a long way, because things like this conversation of moving from one system to a new system was a lot of good conversations. And Danny really took the lead after that point of helping to get us there to dLive, to one mix. Yep. And that's been a game changer. So much clarity in our ears now. And when we can hear better, we're going to play better. We're going to enjoy it. Our volunteers are going to love how they sound. And when they love how they sound, they're going to execute really well, because they're having fun now, because they're just enjoying playing because they could hear really great sounds in their ears now. So
I'll say on the relationship thing too, for me, a lot of my experience was taking care of artists in the secular concert world, and even taking care of CEOs in the corporate world. So those little things, and I'll show you as I continue on this tour, I'll show you guys the little nuances, and they're not even tech things, that just those little things, those little details that go a long ways and help with that relationship. So, Aaron, let me know what you're looking for in a mix.
Everybody's going to be different. And so different worship leaders might be going after different things. But for me, I wanted more control of the tracks to be able to hear things with more clarity, even pads being on its own thing and separate from piano, so that I could bring up the pad level of the volume that I want, because I want atmosphere, but I don't want it taken over. I'm such a fan of reverb in my ears and my mix, but it's going to be different in the house. And so that was another thing that I wanted broken out and living on its own. I wanted control over just my specific reverb, because they're going to want something different out there, and I'm going to want something different in here. That was also a game changer, to be able to have my own control over how much reverb I want in my ears, and even what type of reverb Danny worked on and gave me a couple choices of different styles of reverb. And the biggest thing for me was I was after efficiency in our rehearsals. And so what I realized was that more control over our mixes individually across the stage of every position, everybody being able to have more control over their mix, minimize, hey, raising your hands in the middle of a song or after a song, hey, can we put that down more? Can we put this down more? And 5-10 minutes later, when you're spending a lot of time on getting our ears dialed, now that's definitely really helped minimize rehearsal, so that we could really focus on the music and gelling together and leading in the spirit and playing with skill.
Well, and that's how we got it to actually doing an analog split, separate monitor consoles. And all I do is come in and check your gains as you guys start line checking and noodling around in the morning. And then as rehearsal goes on, another pro note for sound engineers is to really read your band's body language, read your band's facial cues. You can tell by the way they're holding themselves, or if they're playing with their pack a lot or running back to their mixer to change their mix. Be proactive, ask, hey, is there anything I can do? You know, I notice when Aaron's running back to his mixer, like, hey, is there something I can be helping out with, and just take your pack for a minute and listen and see what I can do to fix it. But for the most part, it's pretty set and forget on my end. I just make sure gains look right, and then they take care of it themselves, which is nice, because I hate taking care of monitors from front of house. I don't like having what I do at front of house affect the band. That's not fair to anybody. We were all much happier after we decided to do this split out.
It's been fantastic.
Wireless in-ears, we're running PSM 300s. I'm running ULXDs for my wireless mics. I've got a quad and then 2 duals. And then I've got some UR4Ds that are old, and they're just here as O's and backups. And they're all going into antenna management and things like that. I've got 4 channels of vocals for the band on wireless. And so I run that into a cloud lifter, because the band really needed a lot more headroom. It's a little unorthodox. I don't recommend this for everybody. People are probably seeing that I have a cloud lifter and hearing what the heck is that for? Because our band wanted more headroom on their vocals, so that gave me that opportunity to add a little bit more headroom there without gaining the sound out of it on the console, which has really helped out a lot. Another fun thing that's just right here, we don't use it much these days because people are using modelers most of the time, but we do have an amp room. So we are using the amp room currently, and that just gets patched to the patch bay. We're using SGIs to get from the stage back here, but if you're having trouble with stage volume and things like that, isolating your amps like this is key. And it's not always the most ideal sound-wise, but it's a great trade-off, because you're not getting your head ripped off by a guitar amp. So I highly recommend running an amp room if you're going to run real amps. Right here is our Resolume machine. So that lives in the rack, but we've got control over it here. And then we have this output, so we can see what it's actually outputting out to the projectors. And then we can just monitor it from back here, so you're not making a bunch of laps back and forth, because that can get tiring. But this is our Resolume machine. And then we've just got a bunch of storage. I've got my mic locker here, things like that, things we use. We have a lot of other venues. We have a lot of other things that we support. So this is also our storage area for that. I've got a bunch of gear that goes out, and basically this is our warehouse back here. So onward to what's actually out in the worship center. Before we go out into the worship center, actually we want to show you the green room, because production does have a couple pieces in here. So we have our in-ears and our mics. So we come in here every Thursday before service, and we label our in-ears for them so they know whose is whose, and it's just one of those nice little touches that I talked about before, about taking care of your artist, gives them ownership over something. I try to make sure each of these bays is what you are using. So Aaron, when he comes in, he sees his pack, he knows there's always this pack, he grabs that. They grab their mics, they put them back on chargers. But we have these in here just living there, so it's just convenience for them. But we do every morning set them out for them. Just one of those nice little touches. Again, another one of those nice little touches is making sure you have water prepared for people. I'm picky. One of those things, I just don't like having branded water bottles, so we make sure we peel the labels off and have water bottles ready. I'll set those out too for people as we do that. And walking out of the green room too, I'm currently in the process of setting up Talkback here. So after this filming, we will have this little squawk box, much like front of house, where they can hear the Talkback channel, and a mic with a switch back here. So when someone needs to talk to me at front of house, but they're back here, they can just quietly talk to me and get a hold of me back there. So it's just easy communications that'll be driven through our front of house console. The other thing too, we run multiple capsules. So these are my wired backups. I've got my main input set as my wireless mics, but if a wireless mic fails, whatever battery dies, start taking RF hits. I've got cables ran in my floor pockets ready to go. So me or one of my other folks that is here on a Sunday can just grab the same matching capsule that's on their wireless mic. We try to run the right capsule for the right person, and whenever we get a new vocalist, we make sure we find the right mic. This is a Neumann KMS 104. And I've got a DPA de factos I really like, Beta 87s, basically anything but a 58 I'm pretty happy with. I got some Telefunkins, I've got some KSMs, just different things, and we try to make sure we fit the mic to the person. We've got those matched on wireless as well. So if there's any failures, if someone runs out to the stage, pulls the cable out of the floor pocket, plugs it right in, and they're good to go. And then it's a matter of a button click at front of house. But yeah, this is our little wing area that we have set up for quick deployment and things like that. And then we're out here in the worship center. Quickly talk about audio before I talk about lighting here and some backline stuff. Our PA is an L Acoustics Kiva system. We're running arrays, and they're great. I love it. Here's Piano World. I'm running a HOD into the floor pocket there to get him there. That's Aaron's pedal board there, so that's where he's running wireless for his acoustic, and he's got everything there he needs. Our guitarist, his pedal board lives here, and I like to run neat HODs here, so it just keeps your cables neat, makes it look nice and clean, and so he runs that world there. And then our bass rig is pretty simple, and I just take an XLR and run power to it. So here's drum world. Our drummers control tracks, so this is our tracks machine, and then we run tracks through Dante. So I've got a Focusrite Dante card, a RedNet Dante card, in a chassis, so it runs separately outside of the computer. We're running playback, much like plenty of other churches. And then I can show you the interface for the dLive software right now. All my in-ears are run off of Dante. So this is my Dante I/O, so that's how I get out of the console. Out here is just through that, and then I hit a headphone amp and they can do what they want to. And then they control it with this software, so it's pretty easy. All I do is set it up so they can just move faders and pan and do what they got to do. It's kind of cool because you can customize what each person has. So the drummers, they get to control each individual mic of theirs that's on the kit, and then they get everybody else as well. But then for other people, I have just a drum mix that's generated off of a mix on the console, and then I can assign that to their mix just on its own. Before I get into what drum mics we have, I also have a Talkback system. So our drummer gets a Talkback mic, just a good old 58 there, and they like to swing it in and out as they need it. And then let me tilt this real quick. Down here on the floor, we've got a whirlwind mic mute. So it's disengaged normally, and then they just kick it on when they need to talk to everybody, and then that way we don't get blown out in our ears with tons of cymbal noise. As far as mics on the kit, these are some of the only mics I have on the stage. Everything else is pretty much direct in. So I've got a Beta 91 in the kick. I've got a D6 on the kick as well, on the kick out, and then I have a sub kick as well. So I've got 3 mics on the kick. Then I've got Sennheiser 904 on the rack tom, just gives it that perfect rack tom sound. Over here are floor toms. I'm running Onyx D6s, and I know those are really mostly kick mic, but they sound really good on big floor toms. Gives us a lot of body and oomph to those floor toms. Then I've got the crush mic here. So that's just over the kick drum, pointed right at the snare-ish area. And then what I do is just squeeze the snot out of it with a DBX compressor. And it gives you just that aggressive, almost parallel compression sound, but it sounds really good. And then I'm running a pair of 57s on snare top and bottom, SM81s on hi-hats here. These guys here, and that's just mounted on my overhead. And then on my overheads, I'm using C14s matched pair. And I really don't use overheads a ton in the room. Those are mostly for broadcast, so that's why we went with a really high-end overhead mic. The key here, one of the biggest things to having your drums in a drum cage is you lose a little bit of clarity and fidelity. And really the way I combat that is I use triggers. So you'll see these triggers on all the shells, so even including the kick, I've got these Roland triggers, and that Roland brain lives back in the Backstage rack. And so I picked samples that worked with our room, worked with the kit, play really nicely, and then I blend those in together with the real drums. And so really I use those for that clarity, that attack, but I use the shell mics for that body, that depth to the drums, because if you don't blend the two, it can sound really fake, but we really find that right ratio, and it's about playing with that with each drummer. They're a little bit different on where I'm going to have those groups sitting when I'm mixing, but it's just a matter of playing with it, and as long as at the end of the day it sounds good, it sounds good. So that's why I use triggers there. I normally don't like to if I don't have a drum cage, but because you can probably hear it as I'm talking in here, this drum cage is throwing a lot of stuff back at you, and these cymbals get thrown right off of that, right back into the mics, and it's just hard to get all the cymbals out, and so you end up cutting a lot of high end because the cymbals are harsh and the shell mics and stuff, so you end up losing a lot of that clarity and stuff. So I really am a big advocate of samples if you're in a cage, and we run samples live on the broadcast mix as well. We use Steven Slate's trigger to do that up there, but here these seem to work well. It's an old metal trick, normally with just the kick, or maybe the kick and snare to run as samples, but I tried it with toms and it worked out really well for us, so been really happy with that result, so I stuck with it. So this is going to be a weird angle because I want to get everything that's in the air right now. So that's projection and lighting. These are our main content screens here on the side. Those are run off of ProPresenter. I don't remember what projectors I have, but that's just projection, and it's good old, I think it's laser projection, and they're Panasonics for sure. I don't remember the model number on those. To me, a projector is a projector, and every day is a great day to not be a video guy. And then up here I've got for this center screen here, which is run off of Resolume. They're just our backgrounds that we use and different things. We don't use a whole lot of content up there because it's kind of can be a pain in the neck. I've got 3 Panasonic small projectors up there that are edge blended to get that single screen look, and if done right, a lot of people think it's actually an LED wall, and it's not. As far as lighting goes, it's really important to have a good stage wash for your subjects before you think about creative lighting and the fun stuff. You probably saw on the drum cage, I had that bar light, but it actually functions like a panel light, like for video, so I really love having that in that drum cage. It gives us a really cool look in there, especially for broadcast. And then up here on the front of house, there's a front of house truss up here that's hung. I've got a lot of ellipsoidals and Fresnels. I'm trying to actually switch to all Fresnels so I can get a nice soft lighting look and just that light lush look to our video. You know, our lighting in here serves 2 purposes, to light the room but also light video. And so you, as a designer, as the acting LD if you will, and someone who programs the lighting throughout the week, I really work with Josh, our broadcast guy, to make sure that he is happy with the lighting look and everything's looking great. So we have 2 types of ellipsoidals up there and some Fresnels. I like the KL Fresnels from Elation. Those have been serving me well. All right, next I have these cheap LED PAR lights. They do color wash, fill. They give us our blue out look. Really do a good job at that. Then after that, I've got these Chauvet Rogues. And those are mover lights. We use those for fun, but a lot of times they're just parked in this position and they give us some color and a great look, give us this depth and dimension to our stage. Second to last for lighting is these guys right here. These are ADJs. They're Jolt Bar Effects 2s. We have the diffusers in there. Those are cool. They give it a really cool look. And then we just built our own booms here. We used just some Unistrut and some floor flanges and some Schedule 40 pipe and then sandbag them down. So we don't have to drill those into holes or anything. But yeah, that's kind of how we get this really cool stage look behind us. The last piece of lighting is our house lighting. We're using the Elation Fuse pennants for house lighting. We keep a grid, like a actual lighting tied into the grid, but during service we use that, so we use those fuse pennants, so the house lights actually chase with our service. That is our lighting, and we try to keep it simple. We don't try to go overboard. Nice, tasteful touch. It's very capable. We have other events that come in and use the moving function or whatever when we have a VBS, or we host some musical performances in here from a local Christian high school. So yeah, we have all those things that really help us to be versatile in what we do and integrate some other creative things. We've integrated some extra lighting that we rented for Easter and stuff. But my biggest thing for that is infrastructure. That's what I'm big about, and making sure that looks solid, and it is in here. One big thing I'm really big on is using what you have. You should be able to do the same quality of thing, maybe not the same exact thing, but the same quality and with the same heart with the flashlight and the megaphone as you can with the biggest PAs and lighting systems and everything. So the heart and the skill and the vision always applies no matter what your gear is. So yeah, that's our lighting rig. All right, so I'm here with Josh. Josh is our broadcast guy. He takes care of everything broadcast wise, and he does a really good job at it. Well, go ahead and show me a little bit about your room here.
Yeah, so this is usually my spot where I'm at. This is where our switcher is right here. We use 2 boxes and an L bar, so I have that running through the switcher. We have our comm systems here that I can talk to front of house and our camera crew. I have a ProPresenter computer here that'll run our digital signage through. We got our HyperDecks here. We always record backups of every service in case we need content throughout the week or in the future we want to reference back to. Cameras here. This is usually where we keep them, and so the volunteers know where to come pick them up. Mini Ursas. We have 2 Blackmagic 4K mini Ursas, and then we have a Blackmagic Pocket 6K Cinema. And then we have our batteries here that are hooked up. That's pretty much the cameras. Here we have our rack, which is where our Smart Video Hub 40x40. This is where all our cameras and media feeds are coming through. All program feeds are coming through this. Our Smart Video Hub. We have a Resi here that I program our live streams through Resi, which then goes to YouTube every week. And this is our camera 1 here. This is honestly the main horse for our whole camera system. This is our primary camera for our messages, a little bit more broadcasty style than necessarily our worship, which is a little bit more cinematic we lean towards. This is a Blackmagic Broadcast Gen 2. Really good camera, really reliable. Never had a problem with it, and we use it every time. This is our most important camera, even if it might not be the most exciting camera we use, but it's the most important. I can do a whole service without the other cameras, but this is the one we really need, especially for during messages, so it can really capture our pastors as they're preaching. This is our camera 2. We don't use it as much just because the angle's a little awkward for where we have it, but we've repurposed it for a pre-service shot. So I have our digital signage coming from our front of house ProPresenter over DSK2 over this camera 2 feed. So it's a little blurred out, so we can kind of see people walking around, congregating. It makes our online feel a little bit more lively, and especially when we do IMAG in the worship center and it's showing across the rest of the church, it feels a little bit more lively, homey, like everybody's a part and everybody's here together. But this is a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. When we figured out a good way to use it, I love the shot now, and just makes everything a little bit more cohesive and brings everything together.
All right, so let's finish talking about how these cameras are used. One thing that is probably, I don't know if it's unique to us or not, but the fact that we have handheld cameras that then after a certain point go on sticks. You want to talk to us through what that is and what that looks like?
Yeah, we use a system that Bethel coined. They call it Cinema Broadcast. So it's basically a mixture of cinematic style and more broadcast style. So usually how our system works on a Sunday is worship. We're pretty fully cinema during worship, lots of creative shots. Like for me personally, I love lens flare shots, so I'm always encouraging that to add that emotional depth and just make everything a little bit more dynamic. But yeah, our 3 and 4, which is our 2 Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Mini Ursas, are 2 of our manned handheld cameras, and they're always on either side of the stage. On Sundays, we have 2 operators, and they do a great job capturing a more cinematic style. We have our camera 5, which I don't think I talked about a little bit, but it's on a gimbal, a Ronin gimbal, and basically constantly canvassing the whole worship center, getting walking shots, getting more people, hands in the air, all that stuff to add more emotional depth and just make everything more dynamic and make the people at home feel like they're a part of the whole experience. And camera one, we do our best to make it cinematic but stationary, but we can still pull off some really cool things with that, and we just get a little bit more creative. But yeah, that's generally how our worship side works. And then when we move into the message or like prayer or giving back, something like that, we'll transition more to a broadcast style, a little bit more hard cuts and not much movement at all other than just tracking really. And our two mini Ursas will go on two sticks that the director will utilize throughout the message to kind of mix the angles up a little bit, but it doesn't get too fancy or cinematic beyond that point unless something calls for it. But generally we don't, but we always love keeping our eyes open and seeing what we can come up with in the moment. But yeah, that's generally our flow and how we do Sundays on a camera's perspective.
All right, so this is our Spanish translation booth. It's like the Harry Potter closet under the bowl in our worship center, if you will. This is pretty simple. We take a program feed, send it here. We embed audio with a Aja device down there, and it comes into this mixer. So this mixer does two things. It's the preamp for the mic, and that's what gets sent out everywhere, but also it's monitoring for the translator. So that's how they hear not only the program audio, but they hear themselves that way as well. So they have the ability to hear what they want in their headphones there, and they talk into this mic. We're using an SM7B, and we're using a Rodecaster Duo just as our mixer. We had an old Behringer mixer when I got here, and we switched this out. Something more solid, something that made more sense for what we're doing with this. And so out of here, we take the output of this, and it goes the mix minus, and it's just the translation audio that comes to me at front of house. I take that and I send it to the transmitter I showed you earlier. And then through Dante, I also send it to broadcast, and that's how Josh embeds it into the Spanish live stream. So it's a pretty simple thing. They have some things that they need here, and they usually have a transcript of the message and everything, and they can see and hear everything up here. But it's pretty simple. They come in, they turn it on, kind of adjust their levels a little bit, and they talk and do their thing. Pretty simple, but it's a really crucial thing, and we really appreciate getting to have this ministry. And we know it's not a luxury everyone gets, and it's really cool that we get to do that. So that's that. I mean, it's really cool. And if you speak Spanish or are interested, you can check out our Spanish live stream. It's pretty cool.